Hi everyone, I'm Julie from ThermoKitchen, and today we are making a Christmas tradition. It's the traditional steam pudding. It's much easier to make in the Thermomix, so if you've ever put off making this dessert treat, this is the perfect way to get started. We use the Thermomix to mix up the fruit, and then we use the Varoma to steam the pudding. So the steaming of the pudding in the Varoma is just so much easier than the traditional way of boiling the pudding in cloth in water. That old method is fraught with problems where you can boil the pudding dry once the water evaporates, or you can have the water come off the boil and then the water seeps into the calico cloth, spoiling your pudding. Or you could do everything absolutely right, and then on Christmas Day you open your pudding and it's stuck to the calico and you tear it apart. Or you could open your pudding and it's all gone mouldy. So with this method, none of those things can go wrong. We just have a simple, perfect pudding steamed without drama every single time. So the first step to making a steamed pudding in your Thermomix is doing it exactly the way it's been done for years and years and years. And that is to soak your fruit in some brandy. So the soaking of the fruit means that it plumps up our fruit nicely, and it gets all those lovely flavours into the fruit, ready for a deep, rich flavoured pudding. So that's what we're going to do first. So our first job is to add our dates to the Thermomix, making sure that we have removed all of the seeds. Now we've got some dried figs. Now we do need to make sure that we've removed the ends, the stems from the figs. Now these are well and truly dried figs. These are my figs from last year, and they are as hard as rocks. So they might take a little bit longer to break down. Thankfully we are soaking them, so they will plump up nicely once they've had a bit of time in the booze. And some dried apricot. Okay, we're popping our lid on and we're going to chop that up. So we're chopping for 3 seconds, speed 9. So tap on the timer, 3 seconds, and speed 9. Great, I'm just going to grab my spatula and take a look at those figs. Okay, and I will go again with that. Even some of the apricots need a little bit longer. So 3 seconds, speed 9. And that's good. Now we do have a bit of the fig still quite large, but that doesn't matter because it will soak, and it's, yeah, it'll be all good in the end. Okay, so we're adding our mix of dried fruit. This fruit that I got, it was really heavy on sultanas and not much else in the way of fruit. So we actually took out some of the sultanas and added some dried pineapple and some dried cranberry just to make it a little bit more interesting. The dried fruit seems to have gone a little lackluster in recent years. Okay, and we're adding our currants to the mix. Let's get that off there. And then we're adding our 200 grams of brandy. So I've measured this out already, and I'll just show you. Okay, so you'll see that's 215 grams. Now that is over the 200 grams. The reason why it's over is because I had 15 grams left in the bottle, and that really seemed like a waste of time to put back. I really don't want that hanging around in my cupboard. And by adding it to the fruit, it's not going to hurt the mixture. It will just all get soaked up into the fruit and make the pudding tasty and moist. So that 15 grams, if you've got a little bit left over, don't worry about it, just add it in. Okay, and now we're just combining. So we're combining for 2 minutes, speed 1, reverse blade. So X out of these scales, tap on the home to get back, pop on 2 minutes, and speed 1, reverse blade. We tap the middle of the blade to get the reverse blade where it goes around. So our next step is going to be to tip into a non-reactive container. You want a container that's large enough so that it can circulate. What we're going to be doing is popping it in here. We like to soak our fruit maybe 3 weeks to a month ahead of baking. You can, if you've run out of time, a week is fine before baking it. If you really run out of time, maybe 2 days at a pinch. If you completely forget about your fruit and it's been 12 months and it's soaking in booze, that's fine. You can bake it next year. It will still be fine. It is no trouble at all. I've done this, many housewives have done this over the years. The booze and the sugars in the dried fruit will preserve it. So don't be worried about that at all. So this is just mixing around. Let's have a little peek. Oh, that looks really good. I love the glossy look the fruit gets once the alcohol's covered it. Very good. Okay, and that's our mix. I'm not sure if you can see it or not. Just pour it into here. Smells amazing. Oh, that is good. Okay. Just breaking up any bits that are together just so that we can make sure that the booze gets into all of those little clumps of fruit. Very good. Okay, so now we're just going to pop the lid on. Now what we're going to do is every couple of days we're going to come along and turn our fruit like that. Then we're just going to leave it. So we're going to leave this in maybe a cupboard or somewhere out of direct light, and in the pantry maybe. And then when we think about it, we're just going to come along and just turn it. And that way the fruit is getting turned, the booze is covering all the fruit, and it's there soaking away until we're ready to cook our pudding. So I'm going to leave this now and I'll be back to you and we'll steam our pudding, stir up the rest of the ingredients and steam our pudding ready for Christmas. But we still do have a few more steps to go after the steaming. We need to feed our pudding and I'll show you that process as well. Okay, bye for now. Okay, so here I have some fruit that I soaked a few weeks ago and it is all ready for cooking. So I'm just going to leave that there and we will continue with the recipe. The next step is to place 150 grams of butter in a microwave safe bowl. Add our 100 grams of sugar, 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, teaspoon of cinnamon, and a teaspoon of mixed spice. Now this is now going in the microwave to melt the butter. Right, and once that's melted, we'll be adding the fruit to that mixture and we'll be stirring by hand. Now I have been asked before, why we stir by hand and why we don't just do it in the Thermomix. And the reason for that is the actual volume of the mixture. You may have noticed that when the fruit came out of the Thermomix bowl, that the bowl was quite full. Now, if we're adding another cup and a half of flour, a cup of butter and extra ingredients, it's just not going to fit in the tin bowl. So we can do this little bit of work by hand, and then we will be ready to put it in our steaming bowl. So while the butter's melting, we are going to slide across here to scales, and we're going to prepare to steam our pudding. We're adding 1.5 litres of water. Now, I did use the water from the hot water tap. It's not necessary, but it does save a little bit of time in heating. Okay, I'm going to grab our Varoma and pop that on top. Okay, the butter's all melted. Now, I should have probably used a bigger bowl, but at least we've got our butter melted. Okay, now for a bigger bowl. Okay, we're adding our fruit. Very nice. Okay, next we'll add our 3 eggs and combine that. Now, our butter isn't too hot, so we can add the butter in. If your butter was boiling hot, you wouldn't add it in on top of the eggs, because we don't want to cook the eggs. But this one isn't very hot at all. Okay, mix that all around. So this recipe makes 2 1-litre puddings. So we make them one at a time. I find that this is absolutely excellent when it comes to Christmas time, because you've got one for each side of the family. Or you've got one for home and one for whoever you're visiting at Christmas time. And it really takes no extra time at all, just the steaming time. Okay, so we've mixed in our liquids, and now we just have to add our flour. Oh, no we don't. We've got optional bourbon to add to the mixture, and we might as well. The liquid, the actual alcohol boils off, it steams off. So if this is for going to be serving children, you don't need to worry about the alcohol content. There is no alcohol content once it has cooked. That is if you don't feed your pudding, and I'll tell you about feeding your pudding when we finish cooking it. Okay, we have some self-raising flour. Now, I'm actually making this gluten-free this year. The gluten-free flour is just a White Wings gluten-free. This is gluten-free self-raising flour. You can swap plain flour and self-raising flour exactly as 1-to-1. It will work fine. So if you do have somebody gluten-free in your family, just simply swap out plain flour to gluten-free plain flour and self-raising flour to gluten-free self-raising flour. Last year we made all regular flour. This year we're making all gluten-free because I wanted to give one of my puddings to the next door neighbour, and she's gluten-free, and I really didn't want to worry about making sure that I was giving her the right pudding. So I thought the easiest way to not make a mistake is to make them all gluten-free this year. It's not going to hurt anybody else. The texture and the pudding is exactly the same, so it won't, nobody will even know that it's gluten-free. Okay, I think I've got all that flour stirred through now, just about. Great. Okay, it's time to get to our pudding basin. So this pudding basin is from the mix shop. The mix shop has one that fits exactly inside your Varoma, so there's no guessing about whether it's going to fit or not. The lid goes on perfectly and it steams nicely. Okay, so we are just going to fill our pudding basin with the mixture. Okay, you don't want to overfill it because this is having a lid on it, and but it won't rise too much. Okay, so this is what we've got here. Definitely definitely flatten down the edge, because otherwise you will get any bumps. They don't tend to come out. And we're just popping the lid on. The lid stops moisture from getting into our pudding. Okay, and that goes in there. The lid goes on here. We X out of there and pop 90 minutes on the timer. Varoma temperature. Just do speed 2. And I'll see you back here in 90 minutes. Okay, so that's been on for 90 minutes now. So we're just going to move this off, and we're going to add another, we're going to bring this up to the 1 litre mark. So I've got some water in here. So I'm just going to watch until we get to the 1 mark. Very good. Pop the lid back on. And then we X out of that, and we're putting this on for another 60 minutes. To Varoma and speed 2. And you can see in the background I've got my second pudding steaming as well. Okay, so I'll be back in 60 minutes and I'll show you the process of wrapping and giving your pudding the first feed. Back shortly. Okay, and there we go. The puddings have been steamed. Let's take a look. Just move this out of the way. Okay, and that's our pudding. Now, what we do, we're going to feed our pudding and give it its first feed, and then wrap the pudding. And then we'll continue to feed it once or twice a week in the lead up to Christmas. Okay, now, great. Wow, that's a bit hot. So that's just going to have a bit of bourbon over the top. You might pop it. Oh, it smells absolutely delicious. So I've got baking paper down first, and then alfoil baking paper is to make sure that the alfoil isn't touching the pudding, because alfoil is not the best taste, or you don't really want it touching your pudding. And then baking paper won't actually fold very well, but alfoil does, so that'll fold it and keep it from becoming dry. Okay. Now, I wouldn't ordinarily wrap this hot. I'm just showing you now. If this was cooled, I just wrap this down like that and pop it in the pantry, and in a week's time I would go through and again baste that with a bit more bourbon. And that's the process of feeding your pudding. Continue to do this once a week is fine. If you want a more boozy pudding, once or twice a week. And then when it's time to serve your pudding, you simply pop it back in the basin, put some water, 500 mils of water in the Varoma, and then steam your pudding again to bring it back up to temperature. And just maybe half an hour should be all you need of steaming to bring this pudding back up to temperature. Okay, I hope you enjoyed our traditional steamed pudding in the Varoma. I'd love to see some results, so if you would like to share some pics of your pudding once it's made, come over to our Facebook group and share your pictures there. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to join me on our ThermoKitchen Facebook group. Happy cooking!